Sustainable Enterprise podcast in association with Enterprise Ireland. I'm Bobby Kerr. I'm your host for the podcast series, which will bring you the sustainability stories of Irish businesses. For this episode, I'm delighted to be joined by Patrick Buckley of EPS. Patrick, you're very welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us today. Firstly, tell us about EPS. It's originally a family business. It's been on the go now for over 50 years, but it's a rich history. So maybe enlighten us about it.
Yeah, EPS is our original business was founded in 1968 on the 14th of December 1968 in a town called Kanturk in North Cork by Gerald Buckley, who was 22, and a friend of his, John Josheen, who was 25. And initially there were, I suppose, I have a cutting of the paper, the local paper, on that day when they opened. And normally you'll have that, the page with adverts from various supporters. And the business motto of their business was to make the housewife's lot easier.
Right.
And the model at the time, I suppose, was you had no different than today with broadband rollout. At that stage, you had rural electrification schemes still ongoing in rural parts of Ireland, and in particular up the west coast of Ireland and in parts of North Cork. So their business model was to sell electrical goods into farm households, and the business motto around making the housewife's lot easier was obviously the housewife controlled the purse strings on that family household. Yeah. So if you could convince her to spend some money on some of the goods they sold, that was the business model initially.
Right.
Then in early 70s, John Joe went on and did something different and left, and there was a number of brothers and a number of sisters involved in the business with Gerald, and at the time an uncle of mine, Paddy, and Gerald set up Kanturk Electrical and Pump Services Limited, which eventually became Electrical and Pump Services Limited when they moved to Mallow then in 1974 as part of their expansion. So we've been in Mallow ever since.
So electrical and pump services. So then maybe describe what exactly you do. You're involved in water treatment, waste plants.
That's right. So all aspects of water and wastewater, treatment and pumping. So we work, for putting water pumps and water treatment equipment into people's homes, into schools, hospitals, nursing homes, anyone really who needs water or wastewater treated or pumped. We also work extensively for industry across Ireland, in particular food industry, the microelectronics, all the drinks and beverage companies. They all need water treated and wastewater treated before it's discharged to the environment. And we also work extensively then for water and wastewater utility companies. Most importantly here in Ireland is Ishgaren.
Yeah. So essentially it's about bringing clean water to a business, and then any water then that needs to be disposed of, that it's disposed in a particular way and left back into the environment.
Absolutely. Ultimately it's about the water, but I suppose it has really become so important in the last decade in particular, where it's not just about treatment of water anymore, it's about how we use our water resources, and the leadership you show in that industry as a player in that sector, in terms of how you act and play in that cog, and supporting in particular our clients and the companies we work for in, I suppose, making good decisions on how they use their water resources, how they treat them, water minimisation, water reduction, water reuse, and all of the technologies that come with that. And on the wastewater side then, obviously, treating wastewater from wherever it's produced, whether that's domestic or commercial or industrial, and making sure that before it's discharged back into the environment, all of the pollutant and all the materials that need to be removed are done so in a safe, efficient manner.
Yeah. When you talk about sustainability, this is the ideal business when you look at because you're actually in the business of sustainability and probably always have been, because it's about, as you say, respecting water and making sure that there isn't waste and that it's used economically. And
right.
So
even if you look at our strapline, rethinking, that word rethinking water is a strapline we've used now for over 8 or 9 years. And at the time we were, I suppose, reassessing where we were as a business in terms of your strategic planning and where you're headed and sustainability and all of the various topics that we needed to consider. And when we consulted with all of our employees, a lot of our supply chain partners and some of our customers, we eventually landed on that strapline, rethinking water, because for us it's about rethinking everything we do in that space of the services and the activities we provide. And rethinking basically brought us onto that whole subject of sustainability in a slightly different light. We've always had sustainability within the business. The first generation of family and non-family leaders and employees within the business since its foundation have always been involved, and they didn't call it sustainability at the time, but they were always doing things or doing their business activity in a certain way or getting involved in certain aspects of the business we did with sustainability in mind. And I suppose we've had the opportunity with the last decade or more in our current leadership team and employees to look at it in a slightly different way. We've been fortunate that we've with some additional resources to actually spend and invest in areas around sustainability and the various activities that you need to be involved in as a business if you want to survive.
Maybe give us some examples, if you would, Patrick, about how sustainability is front and central in your business.
Well, look, lots of people speak about sustainability in different ways. So I think first of all, you need to define what it means for you and for your business.
Let's start there.
So for us, as I've said, rethinking water, rethinking how we do things and doing it in the most efficient way we can. But for us, sustainability is not just the environmental piece. That's very important, and everything that fits within that lens, but it's also about our people and how we treat them and how we look after them and how we help them to develop themselves. And it's also around our brand, building social capital and building a reputation and a brand that, and a team that the people and the public will respect and trust. So that's very important for us, because a lot of people probably get distracted around sustainability in terms of the environment and carbon, energy, water, water saving or reducing your waste. But if you don't have commercial or economic sustainability, as I refer to it,
absolutely,
the rest of it doesn't come. There's a balance.
It's a very good point.
Balance, very big balance. And there's been too many examples, I think, in the last 10, 15 years where companies, go and invest heavily, lots of resources in whether that's a whole new range of EV cars or a whole host of initiatives on the sustainability piece. And you're reading about these companies 6, 8, 10 months later, and they're in difficulty because someone of their customers has cut back on their contract, or someone of their investors has pulled back, or someone of their funders or clients has had reduced funding in their infrastructure spend, and then they're back into that mode of minding their business again. So for us, it's about, I suppose, our current leadership team and the team involved in the activities of leadership across our business. We focus heavily on doing what we can, where we can, and when we can, and continue to make small steps in a number of areas around sustainability. But ultimately, the environmental piece, the person piece, the communities, and the brand, because at the end of the day, all of our employees, we live and work in communities, and the type of business we're involved in, it's water and wastewater, so it's land, it's habitats. So we're very fortunate that all of our employees today and in the future will be involved or intertwined with that environmental piece, because it's where we exist.
Yeah, and you've brought in some initiatives with your employees where you help them even in their private capacity in their own homes. Tell us a little bit about that, because it sounds to me like a really good initiative.
We have. So we've been fortunate enough to work with Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland over the years in a number of their schemes, that they had in terms of enabling, I suppose, lots of pilot projects, but also full schemes where we got involved with community groups and industry. So there was one very good one where you had a community initiative where, say, EPS as a company did some energy reduction piece for, say, a customer or a client. One would have been, Anish Alumina, which was the aluminium bauxite production plant down in Limerick. So we did some work for them, and based on the energy we produce or reduce for them on their site as part of their wastewater treatment, SAI funded money that was spent in local community groups. So we actually then were involved in, there was a mosque here in Dublin, there was community centres, the Coonvera, the alcohol addiction centres, 3 of them in Cork. They all got full-blown retrofit, insulation, upgrade to windows, all funded. And it cost them 30% of the outline cost.
Yeah.
That was funded, so the whole initiative was community, industry and a state agency providing the funding. Those schemes still exist. And then we had other trials which led us on to the current one, where about a year and a half ago, we surveyed all our employees in Ireland. Who's up for EV? Who's up for PV? Are you thinking of putting it in? 95% plus want to do it, but equally 90% plus weren't doing it because they couldn't afford it.
Right.
And the average range of cost was running from between probably 11 to 18,000 euros for a standard PV system with an EV charger, battery storage in a home. People don't have that type of money, even with the grant of 2,400 euro and 600 for your charger with 3 grand, still not affordable. It's still out of their reach. So we said, how are we going to unlock it? So what we've done is we researched over a year manufacturers of panels from Europe, inverters and battery technology and EV chargers. And we make that available to our employees at near enough cost. So we import the containers of panels and kit, and we've partnered then with a number of companies around Ireland who are our partners for installing on behalf of our employees. And these are existing SCI registered PV installation companies who have their own resources and their own people. And what we do is we backfill or we infill some of their workload in a week, so they don't have to come out first thing Monday morning to do a particular house. They know it needs to be done. They fit it into their schedules when they have a quieter day. So it allows them to balance their resources across the week or across the month. And we have a number of partners working with us around Ireland on that initiative. We've only launched less than a year, and we've over 50 houses have now been done across Ireland. Employees, their parents, I've said it can be your uncle, your granny, your neighbour, I don't care. Once they're installing PV technology in their home, that's renewable energy being produced for,
So they get the benefit then of your purchasing power in.
Right.
Yeah, and then you're not looking for a margin on it, so it's effectively, maybe it's cost neutral, or you try and make it cost neutral for you
as much as possible.
And then there's a government subsidy which comes in. So all in all, how much would the employee typically end up saving?
So we've seen examples of some employees where the best quote they had received in the market, because we encourage them to go out and get a minimum of 3 quotations. And the best we've seen is one particular employee and his family, best price they had was 14,000 euro. And when they were finished, it was done for 7.
Wow. Yeah, so
significant saving.
Absolutely.
The challenge where we're at now is we still haven't enough take-up. So we now have to revisit how do we encourage more employees again to go and see how do we fund that.
And do initiatives like that, it strikes me that they almost create a kind of a natural buy-in within the business to the values around sustainability.
100%.
Because you can, there's something in it for the employee.
There is. There is. And like we've looked at ways that we can help our employees to become more sustainable themselves, and also then that generates a lot of goodwill and a lot of ideas and knowledge sharing of what we can do and do it better. And that scheme has evolved. It's not just unique to our employees. As I've said, anyone really, customers now are coming, I hear you've got a PV scheme, can I get into it? Of course you can. But also we're starting to roll it out in communities. So we do a lot of work with Ishcare and in various communities around Ireland where we develop water and wastewater infrastructure on their behalf. So what we've done now is we've partnered with Ashgrove Renewables, a local company in Mallow, and Envirobead, another local company in Mallow. And what we're doing is we're going, and through our partner of network of PV installation companies around Ireland, we're now going to go into communities where we're building and upgrading infrastructure on behalf of Ishcare and offer out to that local community by partnering with their tidy towns, their community council, the services of these companies on an affordable community initiative scheme. So again, it's just trying to unlock the connection between someone recognising in a community, there's a company coming in with Irish money investing in a new wastewater plant, say in Ballyvaughan, County Clare, as an example. And if we can offer out to the people of Ballyvaughan access to renewable energy, insulation, window retrofit, and just open their eyes to what's available, because lots of people, even though there's numerous advertisements and promotion, they still don't know it's there.
I know, and you really need. Sometimes you have to spell it out.
You do,
and the fact that you're using Ballyvaughan as an example, you're there, you're in the community, and maybe you can help us.
This is it.
Yeah,
it's exactly. That's there's numerous other towns and villages all over Ireland which can benefit from the same initiative.
Yeah. You mentioned about the business expanding, starting in Kinturk, moving to Mallow, but it's so much more now. I see you've got offices right throughout the UK, throughout Scotland. How did you make that step to internationalise the business?
I suppose firstly, the first generation of family and non-family leaders in the business expanded quite a lot in Ireland and into Northern Ireland initially. And then in 2008, 2009, with the support of Enterprise Ireland, we started to look outside of Ireland. And we would have spent a good bit of time, I suppose, looking at where are the opportunities for the expansion of our business with the type of services and activity we were involved in. And we settled on in United Kingdom because it was, I suppose, it's a 1 hour flight to most locations from where we're based. And we didn't see a need to be travelling for days on end or 6 and 7 hour flights. And then we would use that as the stepping stone to grow our business from there. And fortunately, I think, and it's tied into our sustainability piece, one of our first customers in the UK was Anglian Water. And Anglian Water were very focused back in 2008 and 9 on carbon and carbon reduction.
Is that right?
And at that stage, we had to start a process in 2009 of measuring our carbon across scope 1, 2 and 3 and getting it independently verified by a third party. So that really was the start for us in carbon, and it's great today and in the last couple of years, lots of companies are now measuring their carbon and talking about reducing their carbon and net zero. Which is very important that we do all of that. But for us, we're 15 years in now to that journey. In terms of, first of all, understanding where your carbon exists in your business, and number two, then tackling it to try and reduce it.
You mentioned Enterprise Ireland there. How exactly did you work with them on that expansion? How did they help you?
Yeah, so our experience of Enterprise Ireland has been very good. It's been excellent over the 15, 20 years that personally I've been involved in integrating with, and engaging with Enterprise Ireland and their various people. Very much what Enterprise Ireland can do for you as a business depends on the journey you're on. So there's lots of stuff there for people that are obviously starting up. There's lots of stuff there for people who are at that early stage but starting to push on. And then if you're a much larger business, say like Kingspan or some of the bigger Irish companies, there's different types of supports for them as well, and everything for everyone in between. From an EPS perspective, they've been very good supporting us with, supports and grants on continuous improvement and lean. Various supports around our web development and digital technologies, supports around training and management capability, like they have an excellent course, Leadership for Growth, international business, international sales, innovation for growth, finance for growth, some really good programs for your leaders within your business, and more recently they've a huge range of green supports, energy supports, green vouchers, and they work extensively as well, I suppose, which a lot of people don't realise through the local enterprise offices. Like Enterprise Ireland not only supports the Enterprise Ireland clients, but indirectly then through the Leos. There's huge supports there as well for much smaller businesses.
Yeah, and it's good that you're on top of all that and you avail of everything that's available to you. In terms of the leadership piece, Patrick, in making sustainability, I suppose, an integral part of the business, how do you get the message across to all the people that you employ? How do you keep everybody engaged on the values and the topics around sustainability?
Well, I suppose you have to keep it front and centre.
Yeah.
You have to practice what you preach.
Yeah.
All right. And you have to be seen, to be constantly finding new ways to do things, and finding new areas of partnerships and networks and the types of technologies that we use every day. So we focus heavily on, ensuring we can run a sustainable business cost effectively and use technologies that are appropriate for what we do. So whether that's all of the technologies we've invested in BIM and 3D and scanning and laser scanning. So that's what we would call digital delivery and digital construction, whether it's in the areas of all of our design and our off-site methodology. So we focus heavily for the last 15 years on off-site construction. And that's a big part of our business now in terms of, increasing health and safety, increasing quality and reducing carbon. And then more recently, we're partnered with some really interesting companies. Two good examples would be, there's a very interesting company in Mallow, in North Cork and Mourneabbey called Bladebridge, bladebridge.ie. And Bladebridge repurpose and reuse wind turbines.
Wow.
Right? It's really innovative. So I suppose at the moment, there's a huge debate around the landfill and the where do you store disused or finished wind turbines when wind turbines wind farms get decommissioned are resized and upgraded. And in Ireland, it's estimated, I think, by 2030, we have over 400 to 500 turbine blades will need to be recycled or reused or repurposed in some way or another. So BladeBridge is a company that we're currently working with, where we're taking a wind turbine and we're trying to see what components and products we can manufacture from that turbine blade to put onto our water and wastewater treatment plants.
Wow.
And in that way, we substitute steel, fiberglass, and timber that's used for making certain products and components that we bring onto a treatment plant. So it's really the true sense of circular economy. So if you visualise, Uisce Éireann have a range of water and wastewater treatment plants in a community, say 50-kilometre radius, and there's a mountain in the middle with a wind farm that gets decommissioned. Wouldn't it be brilliant in the next 10 years? Those turbines get repurposed into components and pieces of equipment that get placed on all those treatment plants when they're being upgraded. So that's the model.
Yeah.
So it's early days, but it's just, and when you're involved in initiatives like that, it speaks to your employees and your supply chain. You need to do things differently.
Yeah.
There's always opportunity.
You mentioned their off-site construction.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about that. In terms of the traditional model would be to go to site, to build from scratch, to do everything there. So off-site, what do you construct off-site
Yes.
that you wouldn't have done traditionally?
Yeah, so I suppose it starts with the concept of approaching how you deliver and design a project, like building a piece of infrastructure in a slightly different way. Some people call it the left shift. More people, it's about designing and spending longer at the earlier design stages. But effectively for us and our customers in the water wastewater sector, it's about, initially we invested €5 million in the recession in a new building in Mallow with the right technologies and equipment to actually do large assemblies. And we invested in, obviously, our team and the software and the computer technology to do all of the designing, and then laser scanning equipment, etc., and Google goggles and all the fancy stuff that people like to work on. But effectively, it's about designing in a 3D environment.
Right.
And the best example we would have of a project was a project for Scottish Water in a location in Edinburgh called Winchborough. On that project, we had signed a contract about 6 weeks before COVID in March 2020. And there were about 25 meetings planned in hotels for the teams and their various locations to do all of the work. That was gone.
Yeah.
And we ended up designing and costing that project fully remotely on Teams for 12 months.
Yeah.
And that project was delivered successfully for ESD, Scottish Water's delivery partner. Project has won numerous awards. Huge volumes of carbon reduced. Health and safety was significantly reduced because of the less people on site, and all of that plant was built for our scope in Mallow, dropped on a truck and delivered in and assembled like the best way of describing it for people is like Lego, and blocked together in modules. Now, lots of companies are doing it in their sectors, but for us in the water wastewater sector, when we started, we were definitely one of the first. But all of our competitors are now doing it in some shape or form, which is great. So that helps us to make the industry better and reduce the carbon footprint of our entire industry.
And it sounds like it brought an efficiency to the business.
Yes.
Yeah.
It does. No, it's not cheaper. So a big struggle for a lot of our customers and clients in the initial stages of it is you can't compare it to the traditional cost. It does cost
Where's
a little
the
bit
saving
more.
for me?
The big savings are on prelims. The big savings are on safety, quality, length of time you're on the site, the length of your program for delivering a project. There's lots of savings, but they're measured in different ways.
Sure. So you mentioned communities there. You've done an awful lot of work in your own local communities. As you've expanded to the UK, have you that same approach to local communities over there?
Absolutely, yeah. We do, and lot of our expansion in the main has been through the investment in family businesses. So obviously you're finding that ethos and culture within those businesses.
So did you acquire some family businesses?
We do, yeah. We have done. Yeah, we have done in Northern Ireland and Scotland and in the UK. Yeah. And also expanding by starting up entities as well in their own right, as EPS, as example, our EPS UK business. But you'll find if you work with the customers that we tend to work for are very much community focused and community based already. And you look at a lot of the water and wastewater utility companies in the UK and Scotland and Northern Ireland, and the majority of the industrial customers, they have that piece in their mix anyway and in their lens. So you're just tapping into that, But it's a big piece for us, I suppose. Growing up in the company, we were taught by our uncles and by our aunt and all the people that worked in the business, and my father journaled, to I suppose every place we went, every place we worked. It's all about people. So, and you have to respect the community you're integrated with. And we tend to support a lot of community groups, whether that's sporting or drama or, there's lots of volunteer groups. So every Christmas we do Caring for Our Communities initiative. Probably 40, 50 businesses will get funding in some shape or form to support the activities they're doing. And that's a big focus and always is.
Yeah. In terms of accreditation, and it sounds to me like, that sustainability is ingrained in your business values, but is accreditation important, particularly when you've got clients like Uisce Ireland and International?
It is very
Scottish
important.
Water.
Very important. So, there's lots of these, as people call it, the ISO standards so you've one for quality, 9,000. You've 14,000 for the environment. You've 18,000, which was the health and safety standard. 50,000 for energy reduction. Our carbon reduction is to a standard which is an ISO 16,064. There's a whole range of them. They're all very important, and I think for lots of businesses starting out, that can be very daunting, because there's a lot of work in getting a standard implemented and designed in your business and getting it to work effectively. It's not a box ticking exercise for your audit. Standards need to work for your business, and thankfully we've been at it quite a while. But I would say the first 5 or 8 years of standards and how we did our standards in EPS, they were challenging. And they may not have been that successful at the start for us. It took a lot of work, a lot of effort from a lot of people to get them to be integrated, to get our people to engage with them and understand them, because some challenges companies have. The standard is there, but none of the employees know what it's about, but they have a standard. What's most important is everyone needs to know why it's there, what's important, how it impacts their piece that they do in the overall piece for everyone. And thankfully we've worked hard on that area, and gradually more and more people are fully involved in it, and the audits will show it anyway. But the big piece around sustainability as well that people need to watch is there's lots of other initiatives that people can get involved in, like B Corp, and aligning with UN Sustainable Development Goals, and the Business in the Community is a great initiative in Ireland, and there's a dozen more, right? And for people starting off, where do you start? Because you can spend a lot of money being part of all of those different groups and certification, and before you know it, you'll be burning 100, 150 grand a year just being involved in different groups. And I suppose we take a different focus. We'd rather spend that 150 grand with supporting communities and putting PV on roofs of our buildings and investing in stuff that's going to improve our business. And yes, be involved in some of those groups, but it's just impossibly involved in them all.
And I was going to ask you about advice that you might give others that are on the journey. You've made sustainability central to your business at EPS. What would you say to others? And I appreciate that people are at different stages on the journey.
Yeah, well, you have to start.
Yeah.
I think you need to define what sustainability means for you and your business. And then what's a good exercise, what we've done a number of times is like a visioning exercise. What's life going to look like? What do you look like as a leadership team in a business in 2040?
Yeah.
And there's a couple of boxes you're going to fit in. You're going to be, as I call a dinosaur, living in 2024. You're going to be in the middle, where you're neither standing out, you're not too good, you're not too bad. You're kind of in the general range of things in terms of doing some, but you could do more. Or you can be leading, and as a business you need to decide where you want to be. And then you just need to start, and you need to look and learn, look at other businesses, assess what they're doing, engage with Enterprise Ireland, engage with the local enterprise offices, engage with whatever network or groups will benefit you, and maybe do a 3, 5 and a 10-year kind of an aspirational plan of what life might look like, and then just make a start and get an internal group of support. It starts small and get more and more people involved.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's an issue for businesses today, because 90% of your employees are tweaked into sustainability anyway.
Yeah.
So you just have to create an environment for them
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and support it and invest in it and let them lead it.
Yeah, great advice. Thanks very much, Patrick. That's been really enlightening, and well done to you and all the team at EPS for leading the charge on that. And that brings us to the end of this episode of the Sustainable Enterprise podcast, brought to you in association with Enterprise Ireland. And my very special thanks to Patrick Buckley from EPS. Really, really fantastic guest, and great to hear what you're doing. Please do continue to check out the rest of the podcast series, where we will continue to bring you the sustainability stories from Irish businesses.